Karen had always prided herself on her ability to take a stand. In her mind, she was the last line of defense against societal decay, even if that meant occasionally overstepping the boundaries of common sense. Armed with a megaphone and protest signs that looked like they were made during a coffee-fueled rage session, she set up camp in the town square on a sunny Saturday morning. Today's mission? To confront anyone wearing symbols of what she considered the downfall of civilization, MAGA hats. Her eyes scanned the square with the precision of a hawk hunting its prey. Then she saw him. A man in his 40s, clean-shaven, with a confident air, sat on a park bench sipping coffee. And there it was, his red MAGA hat, its bold slogan gleaming in the sunlight like a taunt. Karen's pulse quickened. This wasn't just a hat. To her, it was a call to action. Without missing a beat, she stormed toward him, her heels clicking against the pavement with a rhythm that screamed righteous indignation. "Do you seriously think it's okay to wear that hat in public?" she demanded, her voice slicing through the hum of the square. The man looked up slowly, his calm demeanor a stark contrast to her intensity. "It's a free country," he said, taking another unbothered sip of his coffee. "Free country?" she shot back, her tone rising to an operatic crescendo. "That hat is a symbol of hate and division. How dare you flaunt it like it's something to be proud of?" A small crowd began to gather, drawn by Karen's theatrical display. Some people discreetly pulled out their phones, sensing viral content in the making. The man, however, remained unfazed, raising an eyebrow but offering no further response. "You think you're untouchable, don't you?" Karen's voice quivered with self-righteous fury. "But actions have consequences." He set his cup down, locking eyes with her. "Ma'am, I'm just trying to enjoy my morning. Maybe you should do the same." The sheer audacity of his calmness was gasoline on Karen's fire. She whipped out her phone, announcing, "Fine, if no one else will hold you accountable, I will." The cameras in the crowd zoomed in, and Karen pressed record, ready to make him the face of her crusade. Little did she know, the tables were about to turn, and spectacularly so. Karen's phone camera flickered to life, capturing her in full outrage mode. She pointed accusingly at the man, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "This is the kind of hate we don't need in our community. Remove the hat or I'll make sure everyone knows who you are." The man finally set his coffee down, letting out a measured sigh. "Lady, I'm not campaigning for office. You're the one turning breakfast into a circus." The crowd, now noticeably larger, began murmuring. A teenager whispered, "She's losing it," while an older man chuckled, "She's gonna burst a blood vessel over a hat." Karen, oblivious to the mounting skepticism, dialed 911 with dramatic flair. "Yes, police. There's a man here causing a disturbance. He's being aggressive and making everyone uncomfortable." Her tone was laced with righteous fury, the kind that begged for a soundtrack of suspenseful violins. Someone in the crowd couldn't hold back. "She's calling the cops over a hat. Classic Karen." A ripple of amused murmurs followed. Within minutes, sirens echoed in the distance, and two officers stepped out of their patrol car. They scanned the scene, their expressions a mix of curiosity and the weariness that comes with being dragged into petty disputes. Karen marched toward them, her phone held high like a trophy. "Thank God you're here," she exclaimed, pointing theatrically at the man. "That hat, it's a symbol of hate. He's been threatening everyone." The officers turned to the man, who remained seated, sipping his coffee like it was just another Sunday. "Sir, is there an issue here?" one of them asked. "Not from me," he said with a shrug. "I've been sitting here. She's the one who's been yelling." Karen gasped, clutching her pearls. Figuratively, of course. "He's lying. He's—" "Ma'am," the officer cut in, raising a hand. "Can you explain what exactly he's done to threaten you?" Karen hesitated. "It's not what he's done. It's what that hat represents." The younger officer blinked. "Ma'am, wearing a hat isn't illegal." Before Karen could launch into another tirade, the man stood up and reached into his pocket. "Maybe this will help," he said, pulling out an ID badge. He held it up for everyone to see. Detective John Harris, City Police Department." The crowd erupted into gasps and stifled laughter. Karen's face went pale, her indignation evaporating as fast as it had flared. The detective's calm smirk was the finishing touch. "Now, should we discuss who's actually causing the disturbance?" he asked, his voice cool as ice. The chapter closed with Karen frozen in shock and the crowd bursting into applause, many capturing her humiliation for posterity. The square seemed to freeze in time. Every pair of eyes locked onto Detective Harris as he held up his badge. Karen stood rooted to the spot, her face pale and slack-jawed. Her lips moved as if searching for words, but all she managed was a trembling. "You're a cop?" "Detective," he corrected smoothly, slipping the badge back into his pocket. "And while I came here for coffee, looks like I'm officially on duty now." The crowd erupted into hushed murmurs. Phones angled for better shots, and a teenager whispered, "This just went from Karen to CSI real quick." One of the officers on the scene, barely suppressing a grin, stepped forward. "Detective Harris," he said, "do you want to press charges for harassment?" Karen's breath hitched audibly. Her wide eyes darted from the officer to Harris. "Harassment? I wasn't—" "Making a scene?" Harris interjected, tilting his head slightly. "Let's see. Recording me without consent. Disturbing the peace. Filing a false police report. Shall I continue?" His voice remained calm, but the weight of each word landed like a gavel. Karen's cheeks flushed a deep crimson. I didn't know you were someone important," she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. Harris's eyes narrowed, his calm demeanor sharpening into something colder. "And if I wasn't? If I were just some guy in a hat, would that make your behavior acceptable?" Karen opened her mouth, but no words came. She looked like a deer caught in headlights, the reality of her actions crashing down around her. The whispers among the crowd grew louder. "She's done for," someone muttered. "How does she recover from that?" Another snickered. Harris folded his arms, letting the silence stretch. "You see, the problem isn't that you didn't know who I am," he said, his tone cutting. "The problem is that you thought it was okay to humiliate a stranger because you didn't like what they stood for. That says more about you than it does about me." Karen's shoulders sagged, the fight completely drained from her. The crowd, now thoroughly entertained, broke into scattered applause. A man near the back called out, "Detective, you're my hero!" Harris chuckled softly and shook his head. The final blow came when one of the officers, clearly savoring the moment, looked at Karen and said, "Ma'am, next time, maybe just stick to coffee." The square erupted into laughter as Karen turned on her heel, disappearing into the crowd, her phone clutched tightly, her indignation now replaced with silence. Harris returned to his bench, picked up his coffee, and gave a small wave to the cheering bystanders. "Now, can I finally enjoy my morning?" he quipped, earning another round of laughs. The officers decided to let Karen off with a warning, but not before explaining the seriousness of filing a false police report. "Consider this your lucky day," one of them said. "Next time, think twice before you waste our time." As Karen slinked away, the crowd erupted into applause, cheering for Detective Harris. A few people patted him on the back, commending him for his calm demeanor. "Nice hat, by the way," one man said with a grin. Harris chuckled. "Thanks. It's amazing how much trouble it causes." Within hours, videos of the incident had gone viral, with hashtags like #KarenStrikesAgain and #DetectiveInDisguise trending online. Karen's face became a meme, her outraged expression immortalized in countless posts. Meanwhile, Harris's calm, composed handling of the situation earned him widespread admiration. As for Karen, her reputation in the community took a massive hit. Friends distanced themselves, her social media accounts were flooded with criticism, and she became the subject of public ridicule. Detective Harris, however, carried on with his life, wearing his MAGA hat unapologetically. When asked about the incident during a local news interview, he simply said, "Everyone's entitled to their opinions, but maybe next time, take a second to think before you act." It'll save everyone a lot of trouble." And with that, the hat and the man wearing it became symbols not of division, but of resilience and reason.